Donald Trump's speech on Iran is the latest chapter in his struggle to reconcile his overriding impulse to denigrate and destroy any significant achievements of his predecessor with the fact that the most salient of those achievements in foreign policy, the Iran Nuclear Agreement or Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action (JCPOA), is working. It is fulfilling its objective of keeping closed all paths to an Iranian nuclear weapon. As international inspectors have repeatedly determined, Iran is fulfilling its obligations under the agreement. The struggle for Trump is more difficult on Iran policy than with the Affordable Care Act, where Trump has been using his own executive actions to destroy directly what he has denigrated. However painful his actions on healthcare are to American citizens who are adversely affected, there is no international multilateral agreement that direct destruction violates. With healthcare there are no equivalents to the adults, in the person of senior national security officials in his administration, who have been telling him what a bad idea abrogation of the JCPOA would be. With those adults uncomfortably restraining him, Trump is turning to Congress to square the circle between impulse and reality, to do what the adults are advising him not to do, and to come up with an Iran strategy that is markedly different from what previous administrations have done. Neither the brief boilerplate in the speech about countering Iran's destabilizing activity and conventional weapons development, nor the paper labeled as a new strategy on Iran that the White House released shortly before the speech provides such a strategy. Most of the paper could have been written in either of the previous two administrations, and probably in any of the previous half-dozen. The issue of Iranian compliance with the JCPOA is where the dissonance Trump is experiencing, in the face of the International Atomic Energy Agency's confirmation of that compliance, is most acute. Trump's speechwriters went to the usual wells that have been tapped by longtime opponents of the JCPOA who have tried to find any possible ground for claiming an Iranian violation. There was mention of heavy water, without any mention that, in the two instances in which Iran's supply of heavy water bumped up against the agreed-upon limits, Iran promptly did exactly what it is supposed to do under the agreement, which is to sell or otherwise dispose of the excess. Nor was there any mention of how, given Iran's reconfiguration of its heavy water reactor and Iraq's permanent obligation under the JCPOA not to reprocess spent fuel, the heavy water does not represent a proliferation concern. Trump also asserted that Iran had intimidated international inspectors, a line which evidently hinges on some Iranian rhetorical bravado about not giving foreigners the run of their country, and which continues a theme pushed by Nikki Haley that is intended to foster the belief that Iran is denying inspectors access to suspect sites. Neither Trump nor Haley has provided a shred of evidence that there has been any such denial, or that the procedures under JCPOA for inspection of non-declared as well as declared sites are not working well. The key to reality as far as Iranian compliance is concerned can be found in Trump's own speech, when he announced that he was withholding certification under the terms of the legislation governing congressional review. He explicitly said he was doing so on the basis of the clause in the legislation that does not pertain to Iranian compliance but instead refers to whether sanctions relief is still appropriate and proportionate to the benefits from the JCPOA. If the administration had genuine grounds for claiming Iranian non-compliance, Trump surely would have invoked the clauses in the law that instead refer to whether Iran is meeting its obligations. Trump also went to the usual wells in complaining about flaws in the JCPOA. Also as usual, the implicit comparison was with a mythical, impossible-to-achieve pact, with no attention given to what the real negotiating possibilities were when the JCPOA was laboriously being hammered out, nor what those possibilities are now. This was true, for example, of what Trump said about the sunset provisions. He disregarded the key considerations about these provisions, including how the most important elements of the agreement never expire and how whether such restrictions remain in place years from now will depend more on how all the parties to the JCPOA see their interests years from now, including whether the United States lives up to its commitments, than on the fine print of a past agreement. Pages